Good morning and welcome to the Keystone Western Podcast. My name is Pedro, your host and producer. This is the show where we talk about trucking and the transportation industry through stories, challenges, and innovations. Each week, we chat with industry veterans, rising professionals, and experts on topics from career advice to mental health and fitness. Whether you are a driver, curious about trucking, or just looking for inspiring stories, we got you covered. Let's get started. Joining me today on this episode, Mr. Nick Mazur,
Thanks for having me, Pedro.
Maintenance Manager. Welcome to the podcast, Nick. How are you doing?
We're doing very well, thank you.
Fantastic. How did you get started in the trucking industry?
I started in the trucking industry the way a lot of people actually get started. It was actually just a way to, a means to an end to make quick money. My wife was going to school, and I was working as an automotive technician, and couldn't really afford to put her through school on that wage. So back then, this is in the late 90s.
Okay.
It was easy to take a 3-week course and go out and double my income. So that's how I got to start in the industry. I put her through school. It was a 2-year school program. She was taking nursing. And after 10 years, she finally asked me if I was going to come off the road anytime soon. I loved being out on the road that much. So
you drove for 10 years?
I drove for almost 10 years, yeah.
Okay. How did you career transition from out of driving?
I ended up on the maintenance side for one of the large trucking companies in Winnipeg. When my wife finally asked me to come off of the road, she said it was a very hard transition. I loved being out on the road, being a driver, the freedom of it, the unknowing of where you're going to be tomorrow, and the unpredictability of it. I absolutely loved that aspect of it. So it was a hard thing to come off the road. But having been an automotive technician prior to that, I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know where I could use my skill sets. And a trucking company in Winnipeg, one of the big trucking companies, actually was hiring a maintenance coordinator. So it was an opportunity to take my trucking experience, my mechanical experience, and put the two together.
Okay. How did that transition go initially? Like, I feel like a lot of us, like me as prior being a driver too, we come into the industry, we're going to fix the industry now.
Yes, and it's a very slow process to change, to drive those changes that you saw as a driver. One of the difficulties is you want to make every change as fast as possible, but the industry moves a lot slower than that. So a lot of the things that you see as a driver, you don't understand the back end, what's happening in the office, what's happening in the background. So making those changes when you transition to those roles, it's a much slower process than you'd like, but you do get to take some of those learning experiences, some of the empathy you have as a driver, and apply those towards your new role.
Okay. So, and you started in the late 90s driving, and so that must have been late 2000s where you transitioned out of driving into...
Yeah, it was actually 2008.
Okay.
That was when I got my first role, and it was a maintenance coordinator for another trucking company. I was in that role for about 7 years, learning the ins and outs of being in an office. Just transitioning to an office environment from being on the road is a culture shock on its own.
Right, yeah.
You lived by yourself for 10 years, sort of isolated from society, and now you have to get along with a group and a team.
Yeah.
So once I got through that transition and started understanding how things work, I worked my way up that department, eventually leading that department, and then leading bigger and bigger departments until I am where I am today.
Okay. So how long have you been at Keystone?
Be almost 5 years now.
Okay. So you started off as a maintenance manager immediately?
Yep.
Okay, nice. That's great. So you've seen a lot of changes over the few years that you've been in the industry, right?
Quite a bit, yes. Between drivers, technologies change constantly. The regulations, the rules that we follow, the environment. We have green initiatives now that didn't exist back when I started driving. All of those things definitely are shaping our industry daily.
Yeah. Okay. What's a highlight from your time in the industry? Like a highlight, or what was the highlight of your?
That's a tough one to answer. When it comes to driving, I love the freedom of it. I loved seeing different places. I love that the ability to just hit the road and sort of forget about the world for a while.
Yeah.
I love that aspect.
Yeah.
Switching into the office environment, I love the camaraderie that we have in our departments. And that ability for one team to look at another and say, I see you're having a difficulty. How can we help with that? That's probably the best part of it that I like.
Okay, perfect. Challenges, I guess, challenges that you had to overcome, or challenges that you face. I guess one of them was like to transition off the road, but you feel like there was bigger challenges than that?
I think that, yes, personally, that was probably the biggest challenge, was transitioning from being over the road into an office environment. Industry-wise, the biggest challenge we have is the political landscape. Technologies are evolving so fast, trying to keep up on with climate change and all the initiatives they're doing for that. The technology evolves so fast, it's hard to keep up with.
Okay. Speaking of technology, like I ran into some interesting data the other day about the International's new engines. You heard anything about that?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah. So I just downloaded, I looked at some data, researched some data, and basically they developed their engine together with Scania, which is in theory, it's a European engine, and it has a higher compression ratio. The number means nothing to me, but 23:1.
It's very high.
Yeah. So that means it burns fuel, from my understanding, what I saw, it burns fuel more, and it eliminates the need for EGR and whatnot. So
that's what they're saying. Yeah, they're hoping to move away from a lot of the bolt-on technologies that we have now. Every time you add a new component to a truck, you're looking at another place for systemic failure.
Yeah.
Every time you bolt a new emission system on, it's got more electronics that go with it. It's got more moving parts, and the more moving parts you have, the more likely you are to see on-road breakdowns, increasing your downtime, fleet costs. So the simpler they can make an engine, personally to me, I feel is better.
Yeah.
But it remains to be seen how it's going to test in our market, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have one of the most harshest environments in Manitoba. I mean Canada. Big parts of the U.S. too. You get very hot and you get very cold. So.
Exactly. We deal with a lot of extremes out of here. There's many fleets in the southern states. They deal with moderate climate all the time. Our fleets are going back and forth from plus 30 to minus 30 on a weekly basis. So it's definitely harder on the equipment for sure.
Well, one to me is, from what I understand, is that this would be exciting. For example, since 2008 when it started, it was earlier, but 2008. Where it really started, EGR I think started earlier, like early 2000s.
Early 2000s, yeah.
Yeah. All they did, try to solve some of the emissions, gas emissions, is to just add another part, like you said.
Yeah.
And now that we are moving towards, simplifying higher combustion engines, it's a positive, in theory.
I really hope so, yeah. I hope not only can we, like, every time we add another component onto a truck too, we sort of reduce fuel mileage. We reduce efficiencies out of the truck as well, because you're adding more parts.
Yeah.
We need to strike a balance somewhere where we have good emissions, but we're also gaining efficiencies out of it as well.
Yeah. I talked to somebody not too long ago. Actually, my father-in-law, who was quite familiar with engines, but he talked about like this high compression technology has been out for a long time. They just haven't implemented it yet. Like, people came up, they figured out how to run like a gas engine on fumes, so to say, right?
Right.
And why couldn't that be used for trucks?
There's a lot of technologies that are out there. Europe is absolutely a leading innovator in the technologies, not only in terms of engine efficiency, but as well as emissions controls and stuff like that as well. We seem a little bit behind in North America. We adapt it just a little bit later than they do. But again, it does help that Europe is our guinea pig. They'll test all the products for us, and then we'll bring over a semi-finished product and finish developing it over here.
Yeah.
So there are some advantages to having them do it first. But I do know there's a huge push now for North America to be the leader in developing these technologies. So we may see some things coming down the road.
Some improvements, hopefully, not the other way around.
Right.
So what motivates you to go to work every day?
For me, it's the team. We try to foster a good environment. Everybody comes to work every day wanting to do a good job. We want to encourage that. We spend more time with the people we work with than we do our families in most cases. If you're going to spend 8 hours a day with people, you might see your family for 2 or 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
So it's much more important to have a good relationship with the people you work with. And these people, everyone in our team, they all want to do a good job. They just they want to have pride in their work, and they want to go home knowing that they did a good job today. They want that self-satisfaction. So we try and encourage that as much as we can.
Okay. So how can one foster a good relationship with team members? You know, they're different people, different characters. It can be challenging. With one person it's very easy, another person is more challenging. Like any advice on how to approach where it's more challenging?
Open communication is the key. If you have topics that are taboo, if you have topics that you don't like discussing, you're not comfortable discussing, those are actually the topics that are the most important to discuss. Difference of opinion happens in every environment, every relationship, every situation. It's knowing how to deal with those differences and actually explore other people's mindset a little bit and sort of understand where they're coming from. So we do a lot of that as a team. We'll get together and we'll talk about random things, and we'll see what the differences in people are and different takes on life and different life experiences, and we kind of put that all together into our team. So there's just a good, healthy conversation among everybody. And I think that's the key is just good, transparent relationships.
Yeah. And in some cases, I guess, just agree to disagree.
Absolutely. Yeah, very often.
You can have your opinion, I'll have mine, and we can still respect each other. We don't have to be enemies, right?
That's right.
Shift more towards a driver perspective. Like, what advice would you have for drivers to be, coming in the industry or being currently in the industry to be successful, like from a maintenance perspective?
From a maintenance perspective, pre-trip. The driver, the shop is responsible for performing PMs, for making sure that the equipment is safe to leave on the road after it's been in our shop. But the key, I think, the key driver to any trucking industry, any field that you're in, whether it's heavy haul, specialized transport, it really doesn't matter what kind of trailer you're pulling, what kind of freight you're hauling. The driver is the first and last stop when it comes to safety and reporting those defects. Pre- and post-trip inspections are absolutely key. That's where all the maintenance begins.
Okay, all right, that's fantastic. So, do it.
Absolutely.
Apply it. It doesn't take long. Like, once you get used to your routine, like at first might take half an hour to do a pre-trip inspection, but you develop your own routines and you get
exactly. It speeds up. You're going to get it down into that 15-20 minute range. A good pre-trip is still going to take you 20 minutes for being thorough. But the time you save on the back end is really the key. If you do a good pre-trip in the yard and you find a defect that we can fix here, it's going to that 15 minutes is going to save you 4 hours down the road. There's nothing worse than sitting on the side of the road waiting for a service truck for something we could have done here.
Yeah, 100%. Something very minimum, right? So what do you do to unwind and relax?
When I figure that one out, I'll let you know. I do a lot of reading. I'm more of a general researcher. I read random things. I don't have a particular genre that I enjoy. It's really random and eclectic what I read. Okay. But just doing general reading is probably where I relax. Okay. I got 2 young kids. Probably my most relaxing time is actually just sitting watching them.
Nice. So what's a book that you recently read that you would recommend or willing to share?
There's quite a few. Right now, I can't remember the name of it, but I'm actually reading Stephen Harper's book.
Okay.
It's really engaging. It's interesting to see his take on the political landscape at that time. And because I'm reading it so much later than when he was in office, it's really interesting to see how the political landscape has evolved since then. Okay. So that's my current read at the moment.
Okay. So he is a very well-spoken person, right?
Very, yes. Yeah, his the way he turns a phrase is very, very succinct and to the point, and that's sort of one of the things I like.
Okay, awesome. What hobbies? Do you have hobbies or something that you're passionate about besides reading?
I'm an outdoorsman.
Okay.
So I like my hunting, I like fishing, I like camping. Now that I've got 2 kids that are starting to come up into that with me, you know, taking them out hunting, they're starting to enjoy some of that stuff, and I really enjoy just watching them learn those things. I was born into that world, so I'm hoping that I can pass some of that along to them.
Okay.
And there's really nothing better than sitting in a deer stand with my daughter and just talking about life. There's nothing else to do but wait for a deer and talk about our world. So
the beauty is there's no distractions, right?
Exactly. There's no television, there's no phones, there's nothing in the way. It's just the 2 of us talking.
That's awesome. So until the deer comes, you're like, hold that thought.
Yeah, shut up.
there comes supper. What's something that people might not have guessed about you? I mean, reading, I did not guess that, but...
Okay. Probably the most surprising thing that people learn about me is through my role, I have to interact with drivers, dispatchers, managers, colleagues at other companies, vendors, suppliers. I have a lot of interactions like that, which require being sort of in an assertive position. But I am naturally a major introvert.
Really?
If I have my preference, I will tend to fall back into being an introvert. I really, that's my natural inclination. So I really, in my role, I've had to stretch that rubber band a little bit outside of my comfort zones and get used to dealing with people that way. So I lead sort of a dual life. At work, I'm extroverted, and in my personal life, I'm very introverted.
Is it easy to turn on and off?
It didn't used to be. It is getting easier as time goes on. The more experience I get in my role and the more relationships I build with vendors, the easier it gets, because now I'm not being extroverted with a stranger. They've become someone I have a relationship with. So it definitely makes it easier as time goes on.
Okay, I see how you would have enjoyed your time on the road.
Exactly.
All right, that's it. Anything you'd like to add?
No. I appreciate the podcast you do. It's good to get some information out there, and I like sharing information with drivers. And if any drivers have any questions, they're welcome to reach out to me anytime.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, thank you for watching. Share if you find it valuable. See you next time.